An example, simple example is what the ascension of Mary in Catholicism. That most people don't know was never the church. The church fought for centuries the fact that Mary would rise into heaven. Why would they fight it? Well, because it's a powerful myth. Women are rising into heaven to be with God. They didn't want that. But the people wanted it, and through small towns and other, they kept that myth alive. That story was true, even though it's not found in the Bible, and you really can't find it in any apocryphal text. But they kept at it, and the church had to finally make it officially dogma, sometime this century. And what has happened since then? Well, it seems that Marian devotion is growing. It seems the interest of Mary Magdalene is growing in the church. You have Pope John II, who gave his whole career to the Virgin Mary. And now you have Pope Francis, who's talking about God is our mother and all that. These myths, once you let them out, do have very transformative effects on our culture. So when you let myth go, when it becomes more of a telephone through the different people, a form of therapy, when it can get rebooted to fit our society, to become a mirror into our society, then that's very dangerous. It creates equality, it creates happiness, and it creates customers that can go their own way. And of course, marketers, religions, and all that don't want that. So we have to control. Our society has to be controlled. Again, as I was saying, another characteristics of the Gnostics is they were, as many have said, the great deconstructionists of our time. By deconstructionists, they believe in breaking everything down and turning it around. Like you have deconstructionists in food. People take French cuisine and they break it up and turn it and give you this weird food all painted and all that. The Gnostics were doing that with everything. It was Harold Bloom, probably the greatest Shakespearean scholar of our times. He's a teacher at Yale. He calls himself a Gnostic. He's Jewish, but he says, I'm a Jewish Gnostic. He always thought the motto of the Gnostic was, what can be broken should be broken. The Gnostics were always there to destroy your philosophy, your ideas, your scripture, and in some ways they wanted to destroy society. They wanted to destroy heaven. They wanted to destroy hell. They raged against both of them in their scriptures. There is probably the greatest scholar on Jewish mysticism, Gershom Scholem. He knew Carl Jung and he knew Joseph Campbell. He used to call the Kabbalists the revenge of the myth on their oppressors. Why would he call that? Because he believed that was the tool of the Gnostics. They could use myth to deconstruct, to destroy, to break everything down, so there would be more openness in the world. And the oppressors is obviously our society, those who would put down the Gnostics and the Mythicists and all that, and have done a good job so far. The other characteristic of the Gnostics, they are artists. Willis Barnstone, he's also another great Shakespearean scholar. He's done incredible translations. He was a friend of Jorge Luis Borges, one of the great literary minds of Latin America. And Jorge Luis Borges is a self-designated Gnostic. He believed that the Gnostics were perhaps some of the greatest artists of all time. If you read some of their works like Thunder the Perfect Mind, which is a great treatise on the divine feminine, the Gospel of Truth. It's true poetry, and you can same with the Sufis. Rumi, the great Arab poet, he is definitely considered by many Gnostics, and you know how his poetry flows in this world, how beautiful it is. And that makes sense, because if you're an artist, you're a myth maker. And if you want to set up any form of religion, you have to be an artist. Most people assume that these Gospels were written and they're sort of read, and the Psalms and stuff, but these things were meant to be read as poetry. They're meant to be used in theater. You had to entertain people to somehow get them into your fold. And you had to be good and believe in your entertainment to get people entertained, or to make some sort of impression. So the Gnostics were artists, and the truth is all religious groups are artists first, whether they're painting or writing scripture or all that. And they all try to be myth makers. But of course the problem is when they try to control this myth, when they try to bring it down and make Jesus into some sort of itinerant rabbi in the back roads of Palestine instead of what he is, which is part of the mythic narrative of our times. And again, the Gnostics eventually were suppressed by the Christian authorities. They were able to expand into Asia in the form of the Manichaeans. But they were destroyed in Asia. They were destroyed in Muslim countries. In many countries, Sufism is downright outlawed. And you can go with the other Gnostic Muslim groups like the Yazidi in Iraq and the Mandeans. I mean, because of the Iraq war, they've been basically, once you have the evil dictator not putting order, then old resentments come. And the Mandeans and the Yazidi have been basically exterminated in the Middle East. The Kurds, they do overlap a lot with the Gnostic ideas, different realities, angels or archons controlling our world and so forth. A reliance on gnosis and less on structured religious levels. So the Gnostics definitely thrived and lasted. We have, of course, the Cathars. Those were made famous by Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code. They were this group of dualist Christians in southern France who just basically scared the hell out of the Catholic Church and the ruling powers because of their idea of openness and their idea of no structure and their idea of self-knowledge and so forth. Obviously, Gnosticism has thrived in secret societies and occultism. The basis of so many secret societies throughout history has been the Gnostics or the Gnostic inspiration or the Gnostic philosophy. Voltaire himself wrote about the Gnostics in his stories because he saw them as an excellent tool to stick it to the church and to stick it to the royals in France. As I continue about the Gnostics and again how they tie into mythology and art, I'd like to quote by Eric Davis, who's an excellent scholar, not just in Gnosticism, but modern esoterica in general. And this is what he writes about the Gnostics and their relationship to the world. The Neoplatonists ascend through the spheres. The Gnostics, wait, do I have it? I bet, let's see. I can read it together. There you go. Eric Davis from his book, Gnomon Codes. The Neoplatonists ascend through the spheres. The Gnostics' sudden awakening. The desert monks' rejection of the clan Elan Vital. It's not simply a philosophical error or the mark of patriarchy, but is fired by an intensely lucid yearning of the highest of goals, liberation. We don't need to expiate our crimes, but to discover and remember the way out of a false world created through no fault of our own. So no guilt in Gnosticism. And this way out is way out. Gnostic texts crackle with a peculiar energy, an almost sci-fi sensibility of alien gods and supramundane universes of light. Though not the first cosmic dualists, the Gnostics may have been the first spiritual off-worlders. So I think this quote really encapsulates well who the Gnostics were and their impact on society and culture. And let me go back. Go back.
Previous, right there we go.
Where's previous?
Right click and go to previous second.
All right. Left-handed, so this
Yeah.
Hey, oh, by the way, this is, if you get a chance, I was mentioning William Blake and his poetry, which is I mean, it's so Gnostic, I could talk about how this happened, but in his art, look some of the art of William Blake, and you will see very much the Gnostic sensibility. Like this picture here, that shows in his pictures, God is sort of this white, dim-witted Caucasian who is basically creating these monstrosities, and you have a lot of divine feminine in his art and so forth. So William Blake really got the Gnostic ethos very well in his work. So let's look at some of the impact of Gnosticism on our culture and history.